What's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be creating this Terminator 2 screenplay poster. I'll be using Adobe Illustrator to start with the text and then bring it into Photoshop to finish up the final effects. Before we get started, please hit the like and subscribe button and also click the bell for notifications. It'll tell you every time I upload a new video. Now let's get started. Okay, so here I am in Photoshop, and the way that this whole project really came to be was I was showing this poster that I put together for a friend of mine who's also a big Terminator 2 fan, just like I am, and he was like, you know what you should do is, and I would totally buy one from you, is you should do the one where you have like normally you do your lyrics with the artwork coming through. You should do one with the screenplay coming through for Terminator 2. And I was like, well, that's just a great idea. So I'm making this for him, but also want to make a video out of it as well. So what I'm gonna do is this right here is 18 by 12. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go full size with that, and we're gonna do 36. And I'm going to add in a little bit of bleed right there. So 36 by 24. And also, let me make sure I turn this on and also turn my notifications off because a lot of them come through, especially at this time of day. Okay, so notifications are off. Typecasting, is that what it's called? Typecasting, keycaster. There we go. Here I am thinking about, well, I guess, it is along the same lines. I'm thinking about movies. Okay, so 2 1/8 of an inch for bleed. That's what I usually do. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the smaller version of that video. And I'm just going to kind of create some spaces for these characters to go inside of. So we only need 3 because we're going to be doing just the 3. Let's see. I was toying around with the idea of possibly doing John Connor as well for this one, but I really just wanted to focus on the 3 main leads in this movie. So let's see here. Okay, I just need to modify that just a touch to where it's right up against. There we go. Good. And so we'll now go into here. Let's go ahead and grab Arnold's image. Should be the right one. Yep. And we'll place it just above that rectangle. And we're going to clip it to that vertical rectangle there. It's fine if it goes a little bit over because we're just going to clip it. So very easy there. And for some reason, it's not even though I did go in and do this. Okay, so it's fine at 100% view. Sometimes it can show you something at a different view, but really all that matters is 100% view. Okay, so now we'll do the same thing with the T-1000, who's definitely the best villain of the series. There's like no question about that. Okay, and then we'll go back and get Sarah Connor. Okay, so let's go in here. And we'll do the same thing that we did with Arnold, just kind of clip it to this rectangle. And we'll go all the way, well, probably like around there. I think that's good. And T-1000 looks pretty cool right there, kind of separating the 2 characters. Okay, so let me verify one more time that our sizing is good with these shapes. And you'll notice too that there's a little bit of a grain going on with these images. I'm actually totally fine with that because, well, for 2 reasons. One, it kind of gives it a little bit more of an age look. And by the time that we actually apply the screenplay here, you're not going to notice that grain. So what I'll do here is I'll just kind of merge these together, since we don't really need those clipping objects anymore. And we've got our nice margin going around the edges. And I'm thinking probably is going to be like either a pure black background or maybe a little bit lighter, just in case we add some effects going on here. All right, so now I have, so I am in the correct thing here. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to spend all this time going all the way down to the bottom of this screenplay. And then what we can do is we can just drop this into our Sublime text editor, and we can clean up all of that text. All right, perfect. Okay, so that's a lot of words, but it's pretty easy what we're actually going to be doing. Okay, so let's go all the way up to the top, and there's really just a few commands that we have to run to get this to be all one solid line, like one single line of text. It's not that hard. So just make sure that your regular expression is on, and then you're going to do \n. That targets every new line, and we're going to replace it with a single space. So as you can see, 6,223 occurrences that we are replacing. So just hit replace. There, it's going to take a couple of seconds because that's going through a lot of those instances, and taking out all of those lines and replacing them with a single space. So, and it looks like we also have tabs. So we'll do the same thing. So you can target tabs by doing the \T and then replace it with a single space. Oh, for some reason it didn't see that. Oh, it's fine. We can just do this. Perfect. Okay, don't have to worry about that. So as you can see, we've got a lot of like spaces here. For something like this, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so on and so forth. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn off the regular expression here, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna keep hitting space until I get to a point where there are very few of those matches found, and then just back it off by 1. So as you can see here, okay, so this right here is the longest string of regular spaces. So we'll copy this. Now we'll go into Shift Command F, paste that, and then replace it with a single space. Okay, so there's 58 of those, and basically this is just kind of part of it. Each time you're going to back it off by another one. Okay. And it really just depends on, oops. Didn't mean to do that. There we go. Let's get rid of that. Okay. So now I think I'll do is probably just kind of target this amount. When you're dealing with stuff like this is definitely a very tedious part of the process, is getting rid of all of these extra spaces, but it definitely is worth it, because by the time you actually get to putting the text in, you want to make sure that all of that text looks nice and clean, and then also you want to make sure that you don't mess up like I did with the BTS poster that I did with my daughter. So sorry that you're having to see, oops, undo. Accidentally did it inside of the text portion rather than inside of this field right here, which is what I'm trying to do. So we're getting closer and closer to the end here. And while I'm doing this, I'll just kind of talk about how, so this is one of my favorite movies, definitely one of my favorite movies, and easily the best one out of the whole Terminator series. I remember the first time I saw this movie, it was the first rated R movie I ever saw. Actually, no, that's not, you know what? That's not true. The first one I ever saw was Commando. And then, yeah, so it was probably around the same time, but I definitely saw Commando first. But I remember seeing Terminator 2 and just being in awe of the movie. And like, even to this day, every time I watch this movie, it's like I'm watching it again for the first time. It's just so intense, great performances from everyone involved. And it's the perfect example. Okay, we're getting down to the wire here, but it's the perfect example of, of the quintessential action movie. It's how action movies should be. So, like, for me, the top 3 action movies, probably Terminator 2, Speed, and Die Hard. And the reason I include Speed in there, it's like, if anybody on here is familiar with Chris Stuckman, one of the things that I loved that he said about the movie Speed is that the main character is never at rest. And it's true, like, he's constantly on the move the whole movie, and it is so intense. Okay, so 2 spaces. good? All right, so we are now down to, all right, so no double spaces anywhere. And there may be a faster way of doing that. If you know of one, please let me know. But this is just how I do it. Okay, so we are now here in Adobe Illustrator, and what I'm gonna do is, so since this document does not have the bleed, and that's totally fine because it's, you know, like we're not really concerned about the bleed here inside of Illustrator. So the document is 36 by 24, and then what we'll do is we're gonna draw this box right here, and the box is actually 2 inches in, around all of the sides, and it's at 32 inches wide and 20 inches tall. So that way what we can do is we've already got all of our text copied onto the clipboard. So we'll grab the area type tool and click up here in the top left, and then we'll paste all of this text, which is a lot. So there's a few things that I'm gonna go ahead and apply to this text. That way we can, you know, like that way we can kind of worry about, you know, structuring it and making sure that it's all justified and everything. And what we'll do is I'm gonna do all caps for this, just so it's a little bit easier. And one thing that I definitely learned last time from the BTS poster that I did with my daughter is really gonna pack in the space between these lines so that you can see it a lot more clearly. So I'm gonna choose something probably one of the ones that I found recently. What's the name of it? New Hero, is that what it's called? Or Hero New. Okay, so Hero New, extra bold. I'm gonna go with that. And this program right now it's choking a lot because it's dealing with a lot of text. So let me just try regular bold. That should be bold enough. Okay, so that looks good right there. So this is kind of in general what the font will look like. The most important thing that we've got to deal with is going all the way to the very end, and we need to make adjustments until this little red square is no longer there. Okay, red square is no longer there. That's funny. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is just from experience in the past, I've often found that, you know, you can go pretty small as far as the type is concerned, but you don't want to go too small because then you won't be able to read it. So we can definitely do some pretty tight leading here. Okay, so this is good. So it looks like we can still make it to where it's obviously legible. And what I want to do is I want to get it as small as we possibly can while still being able to read it, while also being able to fit all of the text inside. Okay, so I think, what was it, 4.5, I believe. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go 4.55, and then we'll just kind of bring in the tracking. It looks like we don't have to bring it in too much. And it sucks because, like, you know, every little thing right here, you know, there's going to be that lag going on. Okay, so now we are all the way down to, oh my gosh, now we're all the way down to fade out. So I'll do the same thing that I did with the BTS poster and just kind of select some of the last few lines, and then we'll increase the tracking from that point to make sure that we get the good spacing all across the bottom there. And let's push it up to, okay, looks like we can push it up a pretty good amount. I'll try going down to 15 and see how that looks. I wonder how much of this, you know, how much of this made it into the script and how much didn't. Okay, so looks like 15 is our magic number, so that's good. There's a little bit of spacing there at the bottom, but it's not that big of a deal. I don't think anyone is really going to notice that. Okay, so now we get to give Illustrator the unfortunate task of creating outlines. So I don't know how long that's going to take, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Okay, it wasn't too bad. It only took about 20 seconds total. All right, so now I'm going to put this in exactly the 2 inches spot for the x-axis and the y-axis, and this will probably take a minute. It usually does. Okay, so that was about 3 minutes of Illustrator processing all of that. So 2 inches at X, 2 inches at Y, 32 inches wide, 20 inches tall. All right, so now the last thing that I want to do is I want to apply this wave effect to all of the text. And this generally doesn't take too long, so that's a good thing. And while we're waiting on this, I'm just going to enjoy my delicious cheese stick here. All right, warp, 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 warp. Come on. And I think what I'll do here, usually for portrait, I usually do about 25%, but for landscape, it needs a little bit more dramatic shift, so maybe like 35%. So I'm going to try that and see how that works. All right, I'm pretty happy with that shift. So let's go ahead and zoom in, and we'll just get a good look at the type. Okay, so definitely a good, you know, it's small obviously, but it's definitely enough to where when we put it on the poster itself, you should have no problem reading it when it's all printed out. So let's go back to a fit view. I'm going to select all, which takes a while for Illustrator. This is a lot to work with. All right, so I'm going to go up here. I'm actually going to go up to the menu and do the copy command just to be sure that, you know, that it is actually indeed copied to the clipboard, because it's a lot of commands that we're dealing with here between Illustrator and Photoshop, and it's having to deal with a lot. So let's go over into Photoshop. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab these three and combine them all together, since there's no need for them to be separate anymore. Okay, so we're going to paste this as a smart object. That way we can keep it as a vector object. Vector. Can't say vector without thinking about Victor from Airplane. Great movie. All right, so we have all of our text pasted right here into Photoshop. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring the image to the top, select these two, and then clip it. So there we go. So there is the entire screenplay of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and you can see the artwork showing through the actual text. All right, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to go into this this layer where we have this solid color and just kind of brighten it just a little bit. I think 20 is good, and for the most part, you know, it's highlighting. You know, it's enough to where you can actually see that there's words there. So that's a good thing. I'm not going to spend too much time in going through and making sure that you can read every single individual word. That would just take a very long time to do. But what you can do is you can just kind of go in here and adjust the curves only to the image. So just clip it to the image, and you could just kind of brighten it up just a little bit. You don't want to brighten it too much because you don't want to blow it out. But if you do something like this, you know, like it's still obvious enough. Like, you know, we're getting a little close to that point where it just doesn't look good anymore. So you want to make sure that you've got plenty of contrast going on there, and then there's even a possibility that we can darken this a little bit more because we increase the curves, or like we adjusted the curves of the image itself. But I think that I am going to leave it at that dark gray, and then what we'll do is kind of as a final effect, go in, add a layer of grain to it, and then add a vignette around it. I think that would actually look pretty cool. All right, so let's add about 50 grain, size and roughness both 25. Let's zoom all the way in so we can get an idea of what it looks like. So it's real subtle, okay? But this vignette, I think we're gonna try maybe like -50, so that way we're absolutely sure that we'll see some semblance of that vignette showing through. There we go. Okay, so let's take a look at the edges. And take a look at it without the vignette and then with it. So as you can see, I think that adding that vignette is going to be a little bit too much there in terms of not being able to read the text. So let's just go back through and add that same layer of grain to it just to give it a little bit of extra dimension. There we go. I think that's looking cool. And and we'll just leave it without a vignette. Okay, so here's the, a couple of close-up shots for you to see before I show the entire thing. But, obviously the wording is all in there, and it's also at the very top. Most people, people are not going to, stand there and read the entire thing. They're going to say like Terminator 2 Judgment Day, a screenplay by, and then it's like, oh, okay, it's the screenplay. Very cool. So as you can see, it perfectly fills up the image that we have, and we did that by making sure that we tweak the text box to make sure that everything fits from perfectly from beginning to end, justifying all the lines, adjusting all the tracking and the leading to perfectly fill up that text box. So there we go. So I'm going to go full screen, and we'll just kind of zoom out to the overall view here. So here it is, Terminator 2 Judgment Day Screenplay Typographic Poster. I got it that time. All right, well, thanks a lot for watching me design that Terminator 2 Judgment Day Typographic Screenplay poster. Man, I nailed it. I guess it only took, 5 or 6 tries to get the wording correct? So, but yes, thank you so much for watching. That was a lot of fun. One of my favorite movies. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe at the bottom. Also, click the bell for notifications to be notified every time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.